Good afternoon. My name is Quinn Goodell, and I'm going to be doing my report on Ellensburg Loves, which is a truck stop in Ellensburg. And I'm going to be talking more specifically about why it has such a high employee turnover ratio, why that's a problem, and a couple solutions that they can use to cut down on that rate and make people want to work there. All right. So for a quick background, I'm going to go over Loves in general, and then I'll get more specific with Ellensburg and what makes it unique. Loves was one of the first quote-unquote truck stops as we know it today that incorporates a convenience store with the self-service gas and diesel. What Loves also did was made commercial fueling lanes, which makes up the majority of their customer base now is commercial truck drivers. They also have fast food partnerships like Subway, Burger King. In Texas, they actually have a triple branded store. They have a Subway, Taco Bell, and a Pizza Hut, I think. And it also has many Love's locations have tire centers for commercial drivers. It's a family-owned chain, which is kind of unique for the size it is. It has over 350 truck stops now. You don't hear about it as much in the Pacific Northwest. As you can see, it's pretty scarce up here. It's based out of Oklahoma, and Texas, along with the Midwest, East Coast, is pretty thick with Love's truck stops, better known down there. It's the 13th largest privately owned company in the USA, which is pretty remarkable considering in 2000 it was only number 446, and with a current growth rate of 20 to 25 stores popping up each year, it's pretty remarkable. And it has made Tom Love a very successful businessman. Him and his wife's net worth is over $5.1 billion now. Oh, and this is kind of a fun fact. As I said, it's headquartered in Oklahoma, and Love's is actually part owner / sponsor of the Oklahoma City Thunder, which, if you know how they came to be, they were the former Sonics that were stolen from Seattle. So what makes Ellensburg Loves, or I'm just going to go into some logistics about Ellensburg Loves, and then what makes it unique. For most of my statistics that I got about Loves, this is where the interview portion came in. I talked to Jessica Oslin, who is now the operations manager at Loves. When I was there, she was just a general cashier like I was. That was about a year ago. So she's moved up pretty quickly. I asked her questions about, it was a lot of reflection. I would kind of bounce ideas off her and what I was thinking, what I noticed, and she would agree, disagree, but I got all my logistic information from her. So there's 12 employees total between the Love side and the Subway side. This Love has a Subway. There's a general manager, 2 operations managers, administrative assistant, 2 maintenance workers, and depending on the season, in the summer, they would get extra part-time maintenance worker, and then 6 other cashiers. And then the other 6 employees, of course, are Subway. All Love's locations are 24/7. If you think about their customers, truck drivers, they're on the road 24/7, so they need to be able to refuel and recharge, and Love's also has showers and stuff like that. For truck drivers. So it's split up into 3 shifts then. There's the day shift, the swing shift, and graveyard shift. All those, there's 2 different main cashier positions along with manager at the time. And the 2 cashier positions are staggered by an hour. So you could work from 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, and then 3 to 11, 4 to 12, and then graveyard shift. And the earlier shift of the 2, it designates that you will be working in the deli. So you'd be cooking the food and cleaning the deli and front-facing the store, and doing gas transactions for just the general public. And then the later time employee would be called the diesel employee, and their job was to do all the major diesel transactions, which could be up to 100 gallons sometimes of diesel, and then another 25 of diesel exhaust fluid. So pretty large transactions. And they would also be in charge of cleaning the showers after the truck drivers, and Love's provided their towels too, so we had a laundry system that we had to keep up with too. And everyone is expected to contribute in completing the respective task list along with their general assignments. So each shift has unique tasks that they should be completed within their shift. And depending on the shift, like for instance, graveyard, that's really the only time you could mop the store, when it was slow enough that you could mop the store and make it look better. Every other shift you would just have to sweep it, and front facing was one that you could do for every shift. So employee turnover. Employee turnover is defined as the number of employees leaving during a period divided by the average number employed during that same period. Most of the time it's either in quarters or years is what it's usually the time frame for that. I found this pretty generous stat. In 2014, the average total employee turnover rate was 15.1%, with the highest two rates coming from the service industry being number one, and then retail / seasonal as number two. Ellensburg, however, has about a 67% employee turnover, which is incredible. Those are just the people that Jessica and I could come up with that we remembered and this was a year ago, so it would be the same stat, the 2014. And those are just people we could remember. A lot of people would work a day or two, and we'd never meet them. But they would be hired and not even make it through the first couple of days of training before they quit. I worked there for a year and a couple months, and in the year I worked there, only 4 people were there the entire time. One of them being the general manager, the other being an operations manager, and then Jessica and one other cashier are still there. So reasons why people quit, this is just kind of general what I'm going to go over in specific for Love's. Like I said, a lot of times people would just quit, sometimes without even a phone call, a lot of times without even 2-week notice. They would just not show up the next day, their next shift, and that would be that. School is a main contributor for Ellensburg specifically. Better job offers weren't hard to come by. Love starts you out at minimum wage, and then after 3 months, you have an evaluation and can get up to a 10-cent raise. And then another 3 months, you have the potential for another 10-cent raise. And then after that, it's 6 months where you have the potential for up to a 20-cent raise. And then they reevaluate where you are in the company after about a year and a half, 2 years, depending on what they're thinking. If you're going to make it into management or stay where you're at and get a raise, or whether or not you're not really being as effective as you had been in the past, and it's just time to let you go. So why the high turnover for Love's? Love's is Ellensburg. Love's is in a college town. Ellensburg is a college town. So the majority of employees when I worked there were college students, former college students, students taking a break, lots of students looking for summer jobs, so they could stay in Ellensburg and not have to move back home. No one likes moving back in with the parents and then moving all the way back over to school again. Or it would be students taking a quarter off, thinking that they're going to be able to save some money, which is what I thought would happen when I started working there, and that wasn't the case. And also what makes it unique is that the employees, being college students, they're really busy with school. Most of them were full-time students and also working full-time at Love's. There wasn't any part-time employees as is defined as getting less than 25 hours. Everyone was getting 30 or more, mostly 40 to 50 hours a week. Busy and changing class schedules. Finals week was a major thing. People would ask for sick days off, and that actually led to a lot of people either not showing up to work or actually being fired because they were told that they couldn't get a replacement, and so they wouldn't be able to get the day off, and they would choose school over Love's, obviously. It's also a very high volume location. It's in the middle of the state, if you think about where Ellensburg is. So if you're going north to south or east to west or wherever, chances are you're going to be going through Love's. You're going to be traveling on I-90 and you're going to be going through Love's, which creates a very fast-paced work environment. Love's was the smallest store in Washington, size-wise, and also the largest store as far as sales volume goes in the state. And another main reason for the high turnover at Love's was communication between management and employees. So shifts had a tendency to fall behind because of the high volume and understaffed for the shift that they were working. And so they would pass on some work didn't get completed off the task list. They'd be behind on towels or out of towels sometimes, out of laundry, and the store would just be a mess, and the blame would be passed on to the shift before that was being blamed, and it was just a chain, a cycle. Instead of taking responsibility and saying this is what you're starting with, where do you go from there and fixing the problem, they would just hand it off to the next shift. And then there was a monthly business review where people from corporate, actually one time, Tom Love himself came to the Ellensburg Loves, and they just kind of go through and do an inspection on cleanliness and go over sales for that quarter or for the month, and loss prevention was a major focus of these. And and the next time I'm going to be talking about why high turnover is a problem. It's very costly. So you think about the productivity loss during training. You have to take someone. There's a lot of videos that people watch and take quizzes on as far as gas safety and stuff like that. But a lot of it is, or the majority of it, is just hands-on experience, learning to do checks and different transactions for those large amounts of money. Takes quite a bit of training to understand what to do exactly. Sometimes you have to call and get a third-party verification. So it's easy concepts, but the practice is complicated. There's a lot of stuff to remember, and it also someone leaving requires a replacement. So high turnover, low-paying jobs, less than $30,000 a year, on average, cost about 16% of that annual salary to replace those people, which is a lot of money. If they're leaving because they're not getting paid enough, it usually makes more sense to give them a little bit of a raise than shelling out 16% of their salary to replace them and then go through the whole training process again. And it also brings down the morale of the company. People with bonds to the employee, like friends, a lot of times, sometimes they would hire a friend of a friend, or someone that was already working there would recommend a friend and they'd get a job. And then once they'd leave, their friend was more inclined to leave as well, and just kind of cause a chain reaction. And then workload balancing. You have less people to perform the same level of work until the person is proficient enough to take over the spot that they're supposed to be replacing. And a lot of times you're missing out on, you're not being as effective and such. So the solution, I'm going to focus first on college students because that's the majority of the employees and the majority of where the employees are leaving to. They're either going back to college or whatever, or leaving Ellensburg and going to a different college. So what never really happened was general management never overhired. We would